I'm feeling I'm running out of interesting angles to start these videos with. If you've been watching Ovalbore a long time, you will definitely recognize this car. This is the first E46 wagon I ZHP swapped. This car came from California. It was an automatic 325i Sport Touring. I'll turn on the actual lights here so you can see it a little bit better. The first time I saw it, I converted that ZF5 HP19, actually no, this was a GM 5L40 car, to a ZF310Z manual, stock clutch, no frills. Stayed like that for a while, then owner got sick of the power, so we found a really low mile ZHP motor from an automatic Vert out of Naples. Got it from Neil at Quarry Motors. Awesome, awesome guy. Shipped that up here, threw that in, threw a couple more performance parts on it. He later did a ZHP bumper on it just to kind of finish off the look. But yeah, this car, I don't even know how many miles are on it now. It is now winter driven. It was never before. Still a very clean car for the most part. But anyway, I digress. When we threw in that 3-liter, the customer brought a UUC clutch with them and asked me to install it, even though the Luke that I put in with the manual trans swap was in perfect condition. So I threw that in. Unfortunately, it is now slipping. It also could use rear main seals for doing that. In addition, just changing out the exhaust hardware. So just gonna pop it on the lift now and go home for the night just to let it warm up, dry off, but we will be getting at this shortly. Pretty standard fare under here. It actually looks pretty good, and that rear main is looking just fine. I'm going to replace it because he brought one. I forgot this also has a Super Sprint catback on it. That explains why it sounded pretty good. I'm gonna hit these little nuts here with PB and skedaddle. But like I said, I'll touch base again when I'm actually swapping the clutch out on this thing. Man, it is hard to find motivation to work on a car sometimes, but as you can see, the Super Sprint is off, the front section's off, the front drip tray is off, and the front structural reinforcement is also off. Next up's gonna be peeling this back a little ways so I can get at the K-member here. I'm gonna take the 10s out of this heat shield, and then this is a 4-bolt rear car, so I'm going to take the drive shaft out, which I think involves potentially pulling this here aluminum cross member. Come to think of it, actually no. Heat shield, yes, drive shaft stays in. I can ratchet strap that over to the side as I deal with the transmission. So since I kind of have to do a little bit of setup anyway, I'm gonna pop inside and pull the shift boot and shift knob off, since all that's gonna have to come out through the bottom of the tunnel anyway when I pull the trans out. All right, heat shield's out, drive shaft's out satisfactorily. Next is gonna be pulling the actual little circlip up here. I'm gonna pull the pin out to the left here. Then I'm gonna move the entire aluminum shifter forward and out of this mount. I'm gonna pull this little guy off here and hopefully pull most of the shifter out with it. The rubber boot is fully in place here, so that's going to be a little bit of a bee sting to get out. Not too bad. Then I can go for the bell housing bolts. May as well pull the I forgot I did reverse lights on this car. Must have been a demanding customer. I typically do not do reverse lights on any manual swap because it's an expensive option. But anyway, yeah, like I said, shifter, that's all coming out. Then I'm going to do bell housing bolts. I'd like to get this thing down to the bare engine block and get the rear main off yet tonight. They're complaining of leaking rear main seal. It's seeping a little bit, but this thing needs a pan gasket. Well, I'm gonna pull the clutch off. Clutch was not slipping due to oil leakage, in my opinion. Another top tip, I don't think I've ever mentioned this on any of my engine or transmission E46 videos. When you're taking the trans out, I always start with the big boys, the big E14s or whatever. When you're doing the starter, take the top one out first. The secondary one, when you've got it about halfway out, actually take a hammer and tap on the end of the ratchet until you pop the starter dowel pin out of the transmission. This thing, you'll actually see the starter pop off of the trans. The reason why I say that, sometimes the starters get hung up on the bell housing. Huge pain. Additionally, I am going to be dropping the car back down and using a ratchet strap on the front lifting hook of the engine, and I'm actually going to strap it to the roof bars to pull the back of the engine back, because right now the engine's free moving quite a bit, and when I pulled the trans out, the engine tipped forward, which makes it a nightmare to put the transmission back on later. So that's going to be one of my next steps here, but I'm going to pull the clutch off, pull the flywheel off, we'll take a look at the condition, and we'll go from there. So the flywheel looks okay. Not great. Definitely some hot spots. The pilot bearing is actually so loose in there I can pull it out by hand, so I'll be replacing that for sure. Yikes. Oh, sorry. Yeah, here's the pressure plate and the clutch disc. It's pretty thin. This thing got rode pretty hard, so I don't know how many miles it's done exactly since I did the 3-liter, but this was a pretty short life. Again, it's a performance clutch, so you can't expect it to live forever, but it seems like this maybe had a shorter lifespan than we anticipated. I'm gonna pull the flywheel now. We'll take a look at that crank seal. So the rear main seal is actually still bone dry. Maybe just the teeniest little seepage. I don't know. I'm always of the opinion, if it's not toast, don't mess with it. I'm pretty sure this is pan gasket, guys. I guess I'll have to send an email. Yeah, this is pan gasket, 100%. Ooh, the power steering pump's pretty wet too. Oh, I wonder if that's oil filter housing then. Oh God. Yeah. Huh. I think it needs both, unless that's oil separator. Wow, I'm not sure when that cut out. The block's wet. Bottom of the CCV is a little bit wet. Looks like oil filter housing. Power steering pump is pretty wet. It's usually a good sign of oil filter housing. That's definitely engine oil, not power steering fluid. But yeah, it needs a pan gasket. I'm surprised, but maybe we didn't change it because the engine, this was out of an 05 ZHP automatic convertible, and really it was in perfect condition. So I'm not even sure if we did a pan gasket at the time. I don't really want to do one right now, but I also don't want to half-ass this. So I guess I'll do some checking. Shoot. That's actually way harder to do when there's no trans on the car too. Supporting the engine is a little tricky, but either way, we can do it. But oof. Yep, that's where I'm leaving it for tonight. I sent an email. I gotta see what they want to do. I really don't want to do a pan gasket, but this car is so nice, I would make an exception. God, that sucks. I'm happy that the rear main is fine though. Honestly, that was perfect when we did the motor swap back in the day. So either way, car came apart so nice. It's always nice when you work on a car that either has never been worked on or has been worked on by somebody that knows what they're doing. Don't mean to toot my own horn too much here, but the biggest problem I see on a lot of these cars coming in for work is the people working on them do not know that the bolts do not need an impact. You can just snug them down and they're just fine. Yeah, everything came apart just perfect. The trans came off nice. None of the bolts fought. Everything cracked a nice, satisfying. But yeah, like I said, I want to do this car justice. So if it needs a pan gasket, it needs a pan gasket. It's in, transmission's back in, everything's buttoned up. Just need to go through nut and bolt everything that got put back, because I actually had a couple of helpers come down, and they did the last, I think, 4 steps. So unfortunately they reused some of the exhaust hardware that I have brand new. But it looks pretty okay. After that, I do unfortunately, or fortunately, I guess, need to do an oil filter housing gasket, which I'm not even sure where I put that. Oh, here it is. This little guy, this was causing most of the oil leakage. Here are the new exhaust studs, and then of course the rear main I'm not touching. But after that, I am going to look at this, because as you can see right here, the rear handle presented just fine, but the front one, no worky. So there's a part called a paddle gear. Like I said, there's a part called a paddle gear, which is this. And I've actually had 3 of them fail this year, because my car is a pre-facelift. It's a nose cone car. So it had shittier ones of these. This is a stainless steel reproduction version, aftermarket. I bought a set of 4, because it's pretty likely, even though a couple of mine have been redone with the updated Tesla parts, that I will indeed need to do this in the future. So, if I go ahead and lock it, my solution for this in the temporary was actually just took a credit card without facing in it, and I propped out the door handle enough so I could get a loop of fancy tape in there. So the gear and the motor are okay, but yeah. Oh God. Poor car. Let's just open you up. God. I've had such good luck with this car. Really haven't had any failures. In the last month, I've had 2 things kind of go wrong. So anyway, I'll walk you through how I'm going to take this apart and deal with it. It's actually not too bad, but we'll be pulling the door. Let me get situated here, and we'll go over that. Okay, so back at it. Pitter patter. What I'm going to start with, take my gas out of here. There's a little plastic trim piece right here. You see in there. Get your trim and removal tool, take that out. You'll have to pry this out as well. There's a regular 9 or 10 mil, I think 10 mil hex in there, and there are 2 Torx T30s in here. After you're done doing that, pull your window switch cluster out very carefully with the trim removal tool, unplug it, and then you can either pull the entire door panel from around it with a trim popper, or you can pull the speaker grill rich rebuild style and pull it that way. Once you've done that, we'll get to all the plugs on the back, but again, pretty standard door panel removal, and that should give us some access to this guy. Okay. So let's start with the low-hanging fruit. Oh, for God's sake. We haven't got the right tool for the job. There we go. Yeah, that's definitely a 10. Grade 8.8. Sorry about the state of my interior. This car is a beater, and you can absolutely see that. Oh no! I know a lot of people just leave this in, but I really would rather it be out. I guess we'll leave that in. We'll have to look at how it's clipped into the back. If you know where the clips are, you could probably pull that out just fine. So let me pull out the 2 fasteners up here. You can see those Torx T30s, and then the 10 mil here. Then we'll come back to it. Okay, next up, we are going to pull the little handle cable out, so we're gonna actually pull it outward, god damn it, this way. And then you'll be able to pull it out of this little fulcrum here. Once you've done that, a bunch of little wire disconnects. This is the micro switch for the door handle. I have ambient lighting because I have tech package, so that's down here. Pretty easy little connectors. There's a main switch on our little window cluster. Oh yeah, you definitely don't want to try to remove that from the top. That is screwed in on this car, even though it's a Mercedes switch cluster. You have your rear Euro parking light. And I'm not going to do all this while I'm recording, but just disconnect everything on the door panel and set it aside. Okay, door panel's off. And sorry, I just have to assume that you are at least a little bit privy to this kind of automotive work. Looks like this car has already been serviced. It should be this aluminum crap, and somebody's definitely just used gaff tape, which I believe is actually acceptable in the Tesla certified owners repair stuff. Next up, we're gonna do these T20s. Just pull that panel down a little bit out of the way. Then we're gonna be revealing all of those guys, and I'll be closing the window all the way so I can get as much room as possible. So Torx around here, and the 3 gaff tape spots on my car are what you're gonna have to do. So this is kind of cool, actually. You can see the stepper motor right there. Sorry. And you can see the paddle gear. So these brake. There's a fulcrum further out, right back, right in the center. You can see it's shattered. So no bueno. And here we have it. 2015. There's the part number. It is, oh goodness, 104284500A. And yeah, that's how they fail. So this is a failure to present. If your handle presents and it won't open, it's a different problem. But yeah, there's the paddle gear. And then this piece of rubber is supposed to be all the way over on this little stud. This fails because, well, heat cycling. So first nut down here in the corner, second right there, third all the way up here, and the fourth is actually back here. And the way you get around and do that is to lower your window again and take it off. So I'm gonna do that one last, but this little white thing right here is your wire harness connector for your door handle. So either use a trim popper or squeeze it with the pliers and push it in. We got to take this off, disconnect it, hopefully so I can stop getting this motor just twirling into oblivion and actually do some work. So next up, we have to get to the one that's essentially right here. This, and this are okay. So that's going to involve removal of this panel right here. You don't need any special tools. You just have to be very careful and work your way methodically from back to front. You probably don't have your mirrors folded in like I do, actually. So if you have tech package, unfold those. Starting with masking tape, but get your wrench in there, just like that, and go until she falls off. During the last turn, I would recommend potentially greasing up your wrench just so you can grab it. But worst case, it falls into the door, you should be able to grab it. Got it. All right, so now window back up, and we'll take the, oh shoot, this is a vertical video. That's what I meant to show you. It's out. Jeez. Window back up, and we should be able to now pull the handle out and do some work on it. So we're really close. If you get the light, I cannot get the harness come out. Oh, it's wrapped around the actuator. That is weird. Okay. Maybe that'll do it. Yep. Okay, let's get this out of there. There is not much to these cars, but I can see how water getting in would corrode the ever-living bejesus out of those little micro switches. So here you have it. There's the OG Tesla paddle gear. That's weird, right? Because this one looks way more solid. Doesn't have any perforations or anything, but regular steel. This is stainless. I should actually test that with my magnet. So the original is, I don't know what. The original, that is probably stainless, but I'm guessing it's 409 or a little more steel-rich alloy, which is probably fine for this. So, what's next? See, this was so eager to fall off in the car, but now I'm having trouble getting it to come off. So, my paddle gear, where are you? Is that right down here? Yeah, yep. So we're gonna have to go in here, which means probably taking these guys off. I've never done this before, so let me just cut these couple zip ties and get this all the way off here and see what we can do. Okay, so if you're having micro switch problems, that's what your micro switches look like. Two little teal top guys. Actually, they're all the same micro switch by the looks of it. That one actually has some branding on it, it looks like. There's 9B on it. This harness, I believe Tesla will sell you, but if not, you could almost certainly remake these and pack them with dielectric grease so they don't break. My micro switches are okay. I just need to replace my paddle gear. So yeah, I'm gonna pull these out. They look like they're probably T25s. Jeez, T25s or T27s. Let's see if we can confirm real quick. So that's a 27. These are 25s. So our stepper motor, just pull it out a little bit here. You can lean it up. This is going to be pretty intense. What I'm gonna have to do is actually hammer the entire shaft, it looks like, out a little ways, and the paddle gear actually straddles this part of the door handle right here. So wow, yeah, I would not want to do this again, but essentially it sits right down in there like that. Wish me luck. Oof. So I believe I have this pounded enough of the way out, and it looks like we've got a little washer that is just sitting against the handle right now. That actually sits in the plastic. Then we have another guy down here which popped out. And this actually sits within the paddle gear. So the back side of both of these plastic washers should be touching. And then hopefully we have the same deal on this side too. But there's enough room in there now where I should be able to set this into the paddle gear. Oops. And get that inserted in. I'm gonna pull it out of the vise and we'll move back over. But yeah, a combination of just hammering a screwdriver and then using a needle nose just to wiggle that out. There's no clips or anything. It's just pretty in there. So there we have it roughly aligned. I'm probably gonna have to put it back in the vise now just to make sure we're good and I can get at it from every angle. But yeah, it looks okay. I'm not too worried about it in its current state. So I'm actually pretty confident in how that fulcrums now. So I'm actually gonna cut my tape off at this point, even though that's probably unwise. It went back together pretty nice. I'm digging the quality of this aftermarket gear so far. Even into plastic, everything is getting thread locker. So I'm gonna throw these back in. I'm gonna grab something to help seal this back up just a little bit, since it's not perfect, but it's going actually really, really well. You can see our gear mesh in there is looking pretty good. You can see why those break. There's an awful lot of force going on there. I mean, that multiplication, especially when this is iced up in the winter and stuff like that, I'm impressed it lasted as long as it did. So I used harness tape. This stuff is for engine harnesses for BMWs. I'm using it because it is water resistant, heat resistant, gas resistant, designed to be in a really hot engine bay and not deteriorate. And I didn't use too much of it because I want to be able to get this apart again if it fails again. But At this point, I'm going to take the opportunity to snip my tape. Fingers crossed, guys. I hope this works. I'm gonna toss it back in, and we'll test it. Gucci. Time to pull the tape. Put the trim back on. And start reassembling the door. As you can see by this, that's a good sign. It's presenting again. So my rear right is making a bunch of noise, but I am not doing it until it fails. Yeah, that's all there is to the process. Not too bad. Still absurd for a door handle, but honestly, this was really well engineered. Props to the Tesla engineers. This was better than any BMW door I've ever worked on. All right, so I've got it sealed back up. Nuts. Okay, now time to plug everything back in. I think we've got 5 total connections for a tech package car and 4 for a not counting the door handle. Yeah, should go pretty smoothly, I hope. The rubber piece, the key to that, put in the small tab towards you first and then just push away. It'll click right in. This guy, it hinges where my 2 fingers are. So you're gonna hinge it and then push in right there. It'll click. I gotta say, a lot of the plastic, like I didn't break a single clip on this thing either. Granted, it's a pretty new car, but overall, pretty impressed. Sorry, the Bluetooth kicked in, so yeah, I'll wait for it to cycle, but I think we're good. About a year ago, I bought a set of these Spartan Autotech liners when I got the Tesla. Actually, the first set were given to me. The second and subsequent scents that I've purchased, and I have purchased them, have been on my own dime. So anyway, whatever, doesn't matter. I just wanted to go over. You guys have seen how they looked brand new. This is about a year in. I just want to show you kind of how they've held up. And this is Minnesota winters. These have done 30,000 miles. Tough miles in my car. So far, great. The carpet underneath them looks fabulous. They've definitely taken quite a beating. I'm not sure. It looks like if this was glued down, it's pulled up. And I'm not exactly sure if it was glued. It looks like it was sewed, and the stitching came up, which is a bit of a bummer. However, it does look like it is diamond stitched underneath. So if this were to pull all the way off, I'm guessing it would still be okay. So unfortunately, not a great mark for quality there. Other than that, though, they've held up remarkably well. So what I'm gonna do, clomp them a whole bunch, dust them off, and then you're supposed to use a damp rag, but I'm gonna hose them off. Whatever, doesn't matter. So I'm gonna clean them up, we'll see how they look, and yeah, get a before and after. These are just disgusting. Caked with road salt and sand and everything. It's nasty. Yeah, there you have it. This was 3 minutes. I shook them off in the trash can, hosed them out, and just toweled them down to the microfiber. And they look honestly pretty much as good as new. Other than, again, this separating, it was thread. You can actually see it. But I'm really rough on this thing. I go full throttle quite a lot, so. Still impressed with them. I'll keep you guys updated on when that inevitably falls off someday. But in the meantime, like I said, they're super solid. And although probably not quite as durable as WeatherTech's, they're damn close, and they look so much better.